Wagwan, everyone. Welcome to Phil Shrapnel. Today is the next episode of our horror month, Halloween month. Well, not Halloween month because none of these movies are set on Halloween, but horror month because it's Halloween this month. And today, it's Halloween today. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. And today we are rounding things out with our 1990s pick. Although there might be some contention for this, Craig. This might be a 2000 film technically, but 1999's Audition.
Yeah, I think in some places it's released in 2000, so it's like, it just depends what part of the planet you're from, I guess.
We might have to redo Horror Month now, Craig. We fucked it up. We've ruined it. It was meant to be the 90s. This is meant to be a 90s episode. I think we can call it a 90s episode. It feels like a 90s film.
Yeah, I guess it does a little bit, yeah.
So, certainly if you've watched any Japanese, like 90s Japanese films, like Battle Royale, for example, there's a very similar tone.
Hmm.
2000s. Shit, maybe I fucked it up again.
It's okay. We can move on from our mistakes.
Let's do it. So, Audition. Happy Halloween. This is Audition. Takashi Miike's Audition. This film has been cited by Quentin Tarantino as one of the best films that he's seen since he became a filmmaker.
Ooh, that's a big thing to say.
Yeah. I think it was like an interview I saw with him where he was going through like the top 20 films that have come out since he started making movies. And I think he cites Matrix as number one. I think he says the Matrix is top notch, but this is in there. I just forget where he ranks it, but Audition is in there as one of his favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see why. Yeah, you can see why it is. It's also a very, 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 very good film.
Yeah, this is the first Takashi Miike film I've watched, by the way.
I mean, it's very good. It's very, very good. Because I remember I watched this film a long time ago, and I'd always seen this film as, oh, that's the movie that's really fucking boring for an hour and a half, and then the last 20 minutes it goes absolutely nuts. And now watching it again, I'm going to take that opinion back, and I'm going to say from now on, oh, that's the movie that's a really sort of heartfelt drama for the first hour and a half, and then it turns into a full-out horror film at the end.
Yeah, and you could almost watch like the first hour, thinking it's a very different film.
Completely different, right?
Yeah, you could say it's not a horror, but don't show anybody the poster because you immediately see. What's her name? I forgot the name of the girl.
Oh, hang on, I've written it down.
Asami.
Her name, Asami. Yeah.
Yeah, with a needle, and you think, okay, that's definitely not romantic.
Yeah, definitely. The poster gives away the ending. I feel like if you were a producer of this film, you'd be met with a really difficult choice of how do you market this film? Do you market it like it's a rom-com or like a romantic drama, and then let the horror be a surprise? Or the more obvious thing, market it as a horror, and then a bunch of people are going to go and be really disappointed for about an hour and a half, and then they only get a payoff for like 20 minutes.
Maybe there's a bit of a Wong Kar-wai influence there, the whole idea of flipping the genres. But I don't know, how many films has Takashi Miike made before this? Because I think he's very well known for his horror, isn't he? I looked him up a little, like briefly when we were watching this film. I know there was one show called, what's it called? Something like some horror anthology thing that happened like 10 or more years ago. And so horror filmmakers made like one episode each. One was made by Carpenter, and the last one was made by Takeshi Miike, and it was so fucked up they didn't air it in the end because it was too much. But I
Well,
do.
I mean, yeah, the ending of this film is really, really disturbing.
Yeah, but can I also? I have so much to say on how the disturbingness of it. But I also just noticed as well that another film I would love to watch for the podcast, Ichi the Killer.
Oh,
So
I've seen Ichi the Killer. Is that
I,
Takeshi Miike?
yeah, same director. Uh,
Ah,
I've heard of this. I think I've seen bits and pieces. Never watched the whole thing, and I would love to watch that.
yeah,
Uh,
Ichi the Killer is good. I like Ichi the Killer. I swear, there's one scene where he's just walking down the street, and it's like 3 minutes, and it's literally the shot just doesn't cut away. It's great. I loved it. It's one of those shots where you're like, you just appreciate how bold the directorial choice is. It's
mm,
really, I really like Itchy the Killer. I had no idea that was Takeshi Miike. All right then, fair enough. Fair
need to
enough.
watch it. Need to watch
Yeah,
it.
let's do a Takeshi Miike month at some point. I say that
Yeah,
about every fucking film.
you do.
Every director, I'm like, let's do a month of this dude. Shall we quickly break down the plot real quick, or do you want to
Yeah.
go through some of your trivia?
Oh, no, that was pretty much the end of my trivia. I don't know enough.
All right.
I really need to know more about Takeshi
All right.
Miike.
Well, let's jump into some trivia. Not trivia, sorry. The plot line. Let's summarize real quick. So the movie starts where our main character, I don't know his name, let's call him Dad.
Aoyama, I think.
Oh yeah, that's his name. Let's call him Dad for now because I'm not going to remember that. So you've got Dad, you've got Mum, you've got Son.
Hmm.
Then we have dead Mum, sad Dad, sad Son. Then we have enthusiastic friend suggests new wife, and the son suggests a new wife. So they decide to hold auditions, which is under the guise of like a movie, but really he's looking for a wife. And
Yeah.
then that's the sort of first like act. Second act is like him meeting this girl, and like they start to build a relationship. And then the third act, they fuck, and then the third act it goes a bit wonky after that. That's pretty much it. I think that's enough to say now before jumping into the rest, like the details of it. But
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. So yeah, let's break it down a little bit. Early on, there's a discussion between. So this is after the mum died. Obviously, the opening scene, the mum dies, and
Hmm.
the kid's only like a kid, and then we get the credits, and then the next scene the kid is clearly like 10 years older. So it's been 10 years. We know that the dad has lived single for 10 years, so you could understand. This is why the movie opens so like I say, like a romantic drama, because it's quite sad, and then it's very like, oh, maybe you should get a girlfriend, Dad, or find a new wife, Dad, because you deserve to be happy, some such bollocks. So it starts off very, very humble and somber and quite lovely, uh, until the son and the dad have a conversation about hermaphrodite fish.
Yeah, I forgot about that. What was that
What the
about?
what was that about? They have a whole conversation about hermaphrodite fish, and at one point they even say, "How did you not know? Did you not cut out its ovaries?" And I'm sat here like, "What?
Oh, I completely forgot that that happened, actually. I'm wondering if there was
What the first
something
fucking
about that.
scene? It's the first fucking scene." And I don't, and I wrote it down thinking, well, maybe that'll come up again, and it
Hmm.
didn't. So it just ended up being some very, very strange dialogue that I ended up writing down for apparently no reason. Unless maybe there is sort of, because like she's not hermaphrodite, but she did get like sort of, maybe, I don't know, but she did have stuff done to her that they don't overly explain. So perhaps there is something about that. Um, anyway, uh, he points out to his friend he wants someone who's skillful at something.
Yeah, like a piano player or something.
which we then find out is something his wife could do. His ex-wife could play the piano. And I agree, to be fair, talent is attractive. So they set up this like audition, which is it's a fake movie, but apparently it's kind of a real movie if they do manage to get the funding, if they do find the right
Well,
actress, I guess. But it never comes to be, so it's a fake movie.
yeah, his friend is called Yoshikawa, I think his name is. Uh,
Yoshikawa, yeah.
yeah,
I
so he
wrote his
helps.
name down.
Yeah, I always try to write the names down so I don't get confused later. Um, yeah, he helps him set up the whole thing, and he's a bit of a perv himself. Like, like he's a bit of a slime ball, and he's asking all kinds of questions. Have you been nude and stuff like this and shit like
Yeah,
that? And like he's really trying to get his friend like someone to basically fuck with, pretty much.
pretty
But
much.
you can see that Aoyama doesn't want that at all. He's more
He wants a
uh,
partner. He
he
wants a
wants someone
partner.
to love.
Yeah.
And I think the reason, because like Yoshikawa, although he's a bit of a perv, he later kind of becomes the more logical of the two because he doesn't think that Osami is a good person to pick because he can't find anything about her. She seems very strange,
Yeah, there's no
and
background. Can't
yeah,
find any background on her.
and
She
that's
just
not a
sort of
good
appears
sign.
out of nowhere. Yeah, massive red flag.
Yeah, huge red
Massive red
flag.
flag. We've
But
got a lot of red flags about this chick, which we will
very early
definitely
on.
get into very early on. We will get into them.
But Aoyama, I think the reason he likes her is because so she talks about how she's had a bit of a rough life, traumatic life, and I think he kind of likes that because he's had his
Mm,
own shit with his wife dying, and he kind of
yes,
connects with her on that level of this
they
kind of like
connect.
sadness.
They connect over this line about death. I didn't write it down, but she said something about understanding or living with death or something, and it just connects with him. He just clicks with it. And he says
Mm,
to her when he does bring her to the interview, the audition, sorry, he says to her like, "Oh, I was taken aback that someone your age could understand that," and it intrigued him about her. But at the same time, there is a huge difference in age, and when they do the audition call, they say women between early 20s and early 30s, but he's got to be in his 50s
or at
or
least late 40s, at
late
least.
at least late 40s. I mean, let's not forget his wife had died at least 10 years sooner.
Mm.
So, you know, I've got a note here that says, hang on, where is it? I can't decide if this is sad or sweet, but it's definitely creepy.
That's
Because
a nice one.
well, it's definitely creepy, but it's like it is kind of sad. I feel like oh, he's bit, you know, I feel bad for him, but it's also kind of sweet in the sense of like, you know, he hasn't, you know, I mean, at least at this point, it's as if he hasn't been dealing with women for so long that he's, you know, he has to do this. But we will find out later on that that might not actually be true. But we'll get to that. Um, and then we've got, I put a note here as well. His friend might be the most enthusiastic wingman ever, setting up this whole concept for him because it's his idea, isn't it? It's not, it is Yoshikawa's idea, the friend's idea to do the audition.
Hmm.
And it has to be said, if I had a friend that enthusiastic about getting me laid, I'd be worried about whether he wanted to fuck me. If
Yeah.
I'm honest, it's like you really want me to get laid. Like, why? Do you want to fuck me? What's going on here? So yeah, I weren't. That would make as much as I appreciate a good wingman as a friend. At the same time, that's too good. You can be such a thing as too much of a wingman. Um, Although the dad plays the wingman for the son, and I like that. That's the kind of dad I want to be. Where
Mm.
the son brings the girl round and he's like, "Oh, I'll go walk the dog." Nice, nice one, Dad. Nice one.
What do you think about the relationships between men and women in this film?
just the idea of doing an audition to meet someone to be your spouse, I find incredibly unsettling that this is not considered creepy behavior.
Do you think, by the way, this is a reflection of the director Takashi Miike here? Because it's like a filmmaker interviewing for his future wife, and it's a film about that. Like,
okay, maybe this is like his real fear, because maybe he fucks like all the women that comes to audition for his movies, and then he doesn't ever give them the part. So his ultimate fear is he'll fall in love with one day. He'll be the one that kills him.
it could be, but
I
it does
like
make
that.
me think about Picasso. So
Mm-hmm.
not long ago, I was in Malaga and we saw Picasso's house. And yeah, they have a whole thing about his artwork and his life. And towards the later part of his life, he has a big thing about painting the relationship between the painter and the subject.
Mm.
And I'm wondering if there's something going on there as well, because he paints the way he does it is he always paints himself as some kind of old, wrinkled, falling apart old man, and the subject is something quite beautiful, reasonable looking, or an attractive young woman, and kind of like commenting on how he feels a little bit like a pervert, I guess, a bit that he shouldn't be doing this because it's a bit wrong in some way because
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, he's this old stereotypical old man painting people, you know. And I'm wondering if there is something like some reflectiveness going on there with Takeshi Miike. I don't know. Maybe you're right.
Perhaps. Perhaps. It would make sense. I mean, let's not forget that, like, when Stephen King wrote Misery, that was also like in response to like his sort of relationship with the reader.
Hmm.
Um, and also, there's definite Misery vibes in this towards the end, which we will get to. Um, so, should we talk about when we first meet her then? So she comes into the audition.
But he already, by the way, he already knows about her because he was looking through like
Oh,
their,
you're right. Yeah, you're right. He'd already read her little essay, hadn't he?
yeah,
So that was a scene where he's reading through stuff and like his coffee stains one. He tried, so the coffee actually found her for him.
yeah.
How
The coffee
and,
fucked him over.
and you know what? The way it's done, it's really it's done like it feels like this is going to be a romantic movie. It doesn't feel like this is going to switch. The early on in this film, it really lulls you into a sense of this is going to be a very sweet film about a man finding a woman to love him, uh, albeit creepy.
Hmm.
But then we meet her in the audition, and we get like a sort of long, like a sort of wide shot of her. We're not too close in on her, and then we do this really long zoom into Aoyama, whatever his name is. How do I say his name? Aoyama.
Aoyama, I think.
Aoyama. We get this huge zoom into him, and like as we're getting this slow zoom into him, he's asking her questions, she's answering them, and she's got this very sort of little delicate voice. We've not, like I say, we've only seen her from a distance, and then that's when he asks her, like he's asking her like humble questions, but then that's when he asks her questions about the essay, when she talks about death, and then that's when we get the reverse shot of her for the first time where she's completely center framed, and we get like not a close up but like a close mid of her face, and we get to see her for the first time. And I would agree she is very beautiful, but she looks scary from the get-go.
She looks like she's got a lot of baggage.
Yeah, she looks I would definitely be scared of this woman if I met her in real life. Her eyes just look like she's going to stab me. I can see death in her. I can see it. I can see it. She's scary from the get-go. But as I say, up until this point, it is a really sweet romantic drama or creepy romantic drama, however your perspective. And around this point of the movie, I think they're playing golf, and we're about 40 minutes in, and not much has really happened. Not
Mm-hmm.
much is going on in the opening hour of this movie. Not really. Because it's around the sort of 50-minute hour mark that they actually go on a date.
I
And
think I
it's a
got that written
2 hour
down
movie.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a 2 hour movie. But we do, before they go on the date, we do get the revelation from the friend that the girl has a very, very minimal background. They can't find any information about her. And then this is the first time we start getting some creepy shit go on, where we get a shot of Asama looking at a burlap sack.
Yeah, this bag.
Now, this bag, is it a dream? Is it a premonition? What is going on with this bag? It's not
Well,
real.
can I
It's
stop you
not a real
there?
bag. Is it a real bag? Could be a real bag. Because then we
Because
go back to the office, but we keep cutting to this burlap sack. And then she answers the phone. And it's like, oh, this burlap sack is real. But then the next time we see it, it's in a dream. Or is it a dream? I don't know what's going on, but it's good.
you just talking about the bag reminded me that about 15 minutes in or something, when they're having this first date, there is this one moment, a very awkward cut happens when Aoyama is asking Asami questions in this restaurant. And then
Yeah.
I think a bit like a shot or two later, the restaurant is empty. And
Yes.
at first, when I saw that transition, because you see Aoyama, he's not saying something, and then it's cut and he's saying something, and I thought, that's a bit of an odd editing choice. That was a bit strange because so far the film has been shot really well, very
Yeah.
detailed. Everything just seems very well done. I was like, why is that like that? And then as this film started to get stranger from this point, I started to realize maybe that was intentional. Maybe it was something around this point that reality started to shift. Maybe it starts happening a bit
Mm-hmm.
earlier than this
Yeah.
bit that happens about an hour or 20 in, because that gets very weird. But maybe because we also in this strange psychological moment where we don't know
Yeah.
what's real, we do return back to this restaurant a couple of
Yeah.
times, and they're
Yeah. I was just
talking,
gonna say.
and they say Asami gives different responses or says something different than what she said originally when they first were in the restaurant. So I'm wondering, probably there is some importance here, and I wish I was smart
You
enough
know what?
to know, but I
No,
don't get it.
no. I actually think that you put it really eloquently a second ago when you said that like this is like a significant point where things start crashing down, because that's why and I would argue that's we return to this scene in that sort of dreamscape sequence, and I think we hear a part of the conversation that was deleted from the audience. So I think you can make the argument that there was a conversation had that we find out what was spoken about later on, but there was a part of the conversation that did make him uncomfortable. So they're not letting us see the uncomfortable parts of the relationship early on, but we do get to see flashes of it, and it makes you sort of start scratching your head. But it's only at the end does it slot into place. So I think you're dead on. I think you're dead on. I think that because that sequence where they're suddenly alone in the cafe, yeah, I really, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think that's
Hmm.
very, very important. Um,
I'm also
I'll
wondering.
go on.
I'm also wondering, maybe the reason we get um, that conversation a bit later on in this kind of dream sequence is because maybe at the time when Aoyama, sorry, was talking to Asami there, he didn't really think what she was saying was very important, or didn't put
Yeah.
much weight behind it. Only when stuff starts getting really creepy, starts looking back and, oh fuck, maybe I should have paid more attention to that. You know,
Mm,
maybe it's him realizing that there were a lot more red flags than because I think he knows there are there. Like Yoshikawa tells him there are red flags, but he doesn't want to believe them. And only when
no.
stuff really gets fucked up does he, oh, okay, I, I really should have paid more attention to them. I should have stopped myself, you know. So maybe it's something like that, looking back at things he should have taken a bit more seriously.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I've even got a note here that when they go to that beach house, and even when she takes off her clothes, I still think she looks terrified. Like when she's seducing him, she got this look in her eye where it's like, don't do it, because it's not going to end well. You can tell it's not going to end well. And then she now she reveals the self-harm, and he very sweetly doesn't care, right? Although we do find out later on that it's not self-harm, it was done to her. But she tells him it was self-harm, and he says, oh, I don't care, you're still very beautiful. And it's very sweet. But then she says to him, do you promise to only love me? And he, and then and the thing is, he accepts the promise, but in all fairness, he doesn't say anything. He just starts fucking her. And I've got a note here that's saying, technically, no promise was made there. And I think that was very, very intentional. I think we're meant to assume that at this point, he has seen enough red flags. But he's just letting the temptation of a naked woman get the better of him.
And you mentioned that, and again we return to this scene within the dream sequence.
Yes, we
and
do.
He runs away, I think, if I'm correct.
I was going to say though about that scene before we move on, where they're at dinner. So the first thing I noticed, he's got a beer on his table. He's already started drinking it, and then they bring her out the same beer, right? So normally I would complain about drinks, despite being the same, coming out separately. However, after living in Asia for 4 years, it's totally realistic.
Why? What's the logic there?
Because that's how they do it in Asia. I don't know why the fuck they do this here, but like the last time I remember on New Year's, I was on one of these islands, and I went to this fancy hotel / bar, and it was 4 of us. We all ordered a cocktail, and they were separate cocktails. Like no one ordered the same cocktail. We all ordered different cocktails. It took 40 minutes for them to bring everyone their drink. It took 10 minutes per drink to come. So by the time the last person got their drink, the rest of us wanted another drink. So we were like, down that, we're going to another place. Don't get me wrong, that was really, really extreme. We couldn't believe how long it was taking them to bring the drink. And they literally did it one at a time. However, it's not normally that bad, but they still like to bring drinks out like one at a time. Food will come out before drinks here as well, which
That's
I also
crazy.
think. Yeah, I know. I think it's really strange. I think you definitely want to put your drinks out before you put the food out. But I don't know. So yeah, I felt, as much as I immediately was annoyed by it, I thought to myself, that's kind of standard in Asia, at least the parts of Asia I've been traveling around. So yeah. Let's get back into the movie though. So they smash, and then she runs out on him in the middle of the night.
And then he can't find her.
And then he can't find her. The friend tells him, like, tries to encourage him to move on. But he's adamant that he wants to find her. So he finds a rundown apartment that's all been boarded up. But inside, there's like an old, gross man in a wheelchair playing.
Wasn't that the school?
Yeah, but it's boarded up. And it doesn't make sense to me that there's a boarded up building with a person inside playing piano. It's boarded up. How did that happen?
Maybe there was more than one entrance. I don't know.
All right, but still, why would you board it up if you're trying to get in and out? But anyway, so the gross man in the wheelchair, and he's got ballet shoes on the back of his chair, and he's playing piano. So we know that he's connected to Asami, because that's all we know about Asami's past. She did ballet and she plays piano. So now that we've got this old gross man, we know that they're connected in some way.
Can I also mention something as well that Asami put in her essay, was that she used to be a ballet dancer until her hips got broken or smashed or something. So I'm wondering, it's quite likely that she was abused, potentially sexually,
Yes.
and
Yes.
maybe that hips breaking is a very fucked up result of that.
Yes, I agree. I think that's absolutely it. So, because obviously we get this like flash of what might have happened. Now, at first, I thought he was sterilizing her. I thought he was like making like sort of cauterizing, you know, that. That's what I thought he was
You
doing.
can say it. You can say it.
It's really horrible. I really don't want to say it, but like I thought he was basically sterilizing her, like cauterizing her closed, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually just, I say just, but he was just like burning her thigh. Still though, gross, but
Can I interject here? I think
go
that
on.
he wanted to cauterize her,
When he
um,
stopped himself.
or she moved or something, and it got her leg and she ran away or something. Because there was one bit where he was getting very close to her personal parts with those two
Yeah,
hot pieces of thing, whatever it was.
yeah.
So
Was
I
it
think that was the intention.
interesting? Because that's what I thought it was at first, and it was only later on was like, oh no, it was the leg. But okay, maybe it was the intention, and then something happened to stop it. Interesting, because that was my initial reading of it. I really did
Mm,
think that's what he was doing. Um, and I think we can assume because his legs are all fucked up, and we know what she's gonna do later. We can assume that she got revenge on him and fucked his
yeah.
legs up. Um, and then the more our main character looks around, the less she can be found. Basically, he goes to a place that she said she worked, and
I know
there's a
this
guy.
place. Sorry, it's called the Stonefish, which like I'm thinking
Stonefish.
I'm definitely gonna open a bar one day in my life called the Stonefish.
Is it a hermaphrodite fish that had its ovaries cut out? Because
Oh, that would be interesting.
in all
Oh,
fairness,
we're so
that
dumb.
I didn't
We're so
realize that it was
dumb.
called the stonefish.
If that there might be a relation there between the fish and her being what's the word would they call it? Mutilated. If she's been sexually mutilated, and then
Yeah.
there's the hermaphrodite fish, and then I don't know, maybe there is, I don't know, I'm not smart enough to say if there is definitely, but I'm wondering if there is some connection there. I don't know.
Well, I
Maybe I'm
think
wrong.
there.
Maybe.
No, I think there is. I just don't think it's been made too clear. It's certainly not. Certainly not when you watch it in Japanese. We find this stonefish pub that's been closed. It's been closed for a year, and there's a dude that fills Ayama Aoyama on the sort of details of what happened, and apparently they found extra parts, extra
Hmm.
bits of a person in the fire. So extra fingers, extra tongue, and extra something else. Um, and like Asami, we can assume it was her who did it, and she's effectively using this place as like a cover. Like all the people that she's killed, you'd think she'd use other people that she wouldn't use people she's killed to cover her tracks because eventually it will definitely lead to her. So that seems a bit silly, but all right.
Yeah, but I've watched a lot of like uh serial killer things. Some of them
Yeah.
aren't really that smart. A lot of these serial killer guys,
Well, yeah, they've
they just take advantage of like poor policing and
yeah,
like
because there's also an element of like, do they want to get caught as well,
mm,
or do they assume they'll get caught, or do they not care about getting caught? So they just keep going quite openly. Jeffrey Dahmer, we know, was pretty much very open about it towards the last sort of 2 years of his sort of serial killing career. He was so open about it that like the whole building stank of dead bodies. So
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose you're right. But it's important to note that at this place they found an extra tongue and extra fingers and maybe something else. It's going to become important later. And then we get a POV Mike Myers-esque shot of someone walking around Aoyama's house, and the dog is there, and the dog knows that there's someone in the house. And then we get this really nice slow fade into night, and Aoyama comes back home from work. His alcohol is drugged, and we know that Asami has discovered he has a dead wife.
Mm-hmm. And this
is where it gets mad.
Yeah, this is the real horror part of the film.
And it's the last 20 minutes of the film. It's taken up maybe 25% of my notes. Like I got half a page of notes on just this scene.
There's so much to break down. I wanted to make notes like you, but I just thought, hold on, this is so much. I'm gonna be here for ages just writing this all down.
You're right. It's way too much. It's way too much. So let's start from he's been drugged. We know he's been drugged and he falls down. So we get this sort of dreamscape sequence first. So we've touched on it earlier. Let's go into it in detail, right? So this is where we go up a notch, and we have this dream of like flashbacks to his dates. We've already talked about one of them. There's another date flashback as well, that Ryoko, that's his dead wife, she's there, and she gives him a warning that Asami is not good enough for him.
Mm-hmm. But we also have other women there.
We do. So this is we get the return of the burlap sack. So he gets like teleported back to basically Asami's house. We see the burlap sack. We see before we see what's inside, we have this sort of tango with him and not tango as in an actual dance, but like this sort of emotional tango between him and Asami. And then Asami transforms into because she starts giving him fellatio. And then while doing that, she transforms into, and we haven't brought up this character because she's only in it like once or twice, but it's this like assistant.
Mm-hmm.
She's only appeared once or twice earlier in the film, and it didn't seem like there was like a romantic history. Maybe she fancies him, but this is where it's sort of revealed he did actually fuck this girl, and she's quite upset about it, and he basically took advantage of her, essentially,
and then disregarded her basically.
Yeah, and disregarded her, and then while still trying to fillet him, she turns into the son's new girlfriend and carries on seducing him, and he has to literally push her off, because I think we're meant to assume he's pretty into it, and he has to he's quite scared with how into it he is, so he pushes her off him, and then he falls over the burlap sack. The women have all gone, and now a man missing his fingers and tongue appears from the burlap and feet. Yes, you're right, and feet, and he comes out of the burlap sack, and then we hear Asami puking in the background, and then she appears, and we see that she's actually puking into a dog bowl so she can feed this dude with missing feet, missing tongue, and missing fingers.
Yeah. And by the way,
so much in this scene.
He has to suck that with his mouth. He's got no tongue.
I know. And at one point he says yummy.
Yeah, yeah.
Ugh.
And you know what's really fun? Like I went to dinner with my wife like a day or two after watching this, and I needed to tell someone about this film because we hadn't had a chance to
Made,
record yet.
made you think of her cooking.
No, you're gonna get me in trouble. But yeah, we were ordered a couple of beers, we waited for the food, and I'm telling her about this film because I think it was so crazy. And she's like, "Why would you tell me this just before we're about to eat?"
I
Like,
know. I know it's pretty gross. I wouldn't recommend watching this scene before dinner. That's for
yeah,
sure.
but to be honest, I like from Japanese horror stuff that I have seen. This is pretty tame. This is not.
Pretty yeah. This is no Taketsu Iron Hammer or Taketsu the Iron Man. This is pretty tame compared to that.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's just some vomiting and some people eating vomiting, and that's as much as we get. The
I mean,
rest
yeah,
of it,
that's the word. Well, I don't know. I do think a lot of the violence that we do see is pretty fucking brutal.
yeah, but you can then eat a meal after watching that violence and not feel bad. If you see vomiting, it's like I don't know if I want to eat now.
Yeah, yeah, true, true. Uh, well, this is it. After the vomit, we have like a bit more detail of her ballet origins, which is also quite gross. We've already really talked about it, but basically, the teacher was abusing her and, you know, burns her on the leg with the thing, trying to sterilize her.
Hmm.
This whole sequence is just brutal, just brutal. And then when he wakes up, well, we realize that this is just him like on the drugs. But then he wakes up, and well, not wakes up, but like it's revealed that he's still falling to the ground. And then we see Asami with an apron, like a black butcher's apron, and the dog is dead behind her.
Why the dog?
I know the
Just
dog was
why?
really cute. I like the dog. Yeah, this scene doesn't slow down now. So we got dead dog. We're now in the real world, by the way, guys. There's not a dream anymore. The dog really is dead. Uh, and then she pulls out a giant needle. I've never seen a needle this thick before in my life. And she injects it right down his tongue. Giant fucking injection. And she explains that it will make him paralyzed, but his pain sensitivity will be more increased. So he's going to get to feel everything, but he will not be able to move. Although he does get a lot of moving done, in all fairness. He does some back slugging towards the end.
To be fair, he needed to be able to move at least a little bit to struggle. Otherwise, you wouldn't get a sense of how much in pain he
Painful.
was.
I think you could have figured it out. Oh, mate. Oh, well, let's get into it. Let's get into these details. Okay, so now.
Can I just say
I,
here, before we get fully into it, one of my favorite
oh,
things about what?
oh, no. It's just that I know we're about to talk about it.
No, 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 no. I won't say anything yet. I'm just gonna say that what
No, I just
really
don't want to talk about this scene at all.
ah oh, I think it's pretty good. Like
Oh,
I think the horror works really well in this. Is that it's not like jump out horror, scary monster shit horror. This is
yeah.
just like being
Really
trapped
scary.
and well, a
Yeah.
psychopath. But the thing that what works really well is that it does it really slowly, very calmly, very
I
specifically.
know.
That really works, and that's really innovating, I think, for the time. Like, I
Yeah,
think there have been some films that have done that since, but like just the level of how well like
absolutely.
violence, fucked up violent shit, but really shot very eloquently.
So,
Like,
well, this is the note I've got before we get into the violence. That this is the tone, everyone. In case you haven't seen it, my note here says no music, just the sounds of pain, but the aggressor sounds very, very gentle.
deeper, 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 deeper. She's saying, yeah, she's saying deeper as she sticks the
Well,
needles.
so this is it. I'm not good with needles at all, in general, and she has a lot of needles in this sequence, and she's doing this which, as you say, it means deeper, and she's going in like to his stomach, and like she's got a fuck ton in his stomach, but then she moves up his body, so now the black apron is now digging into all the needles, pushing it deeper into his stomach. Oh, for fuck's sake, Craig, I couldn't do this scene at all. It fucked me up. I'm just like, ugh. It is making me feel sick just thinking about it. It's horrible. And then, oh God, and then she, she
starts with
does,
the eyes.
she starts doing the needles in the eyes, and oh my God. And the way, and like she's very, very gentle and softly spoken, very like, yes, the meat behind the eyes is the most painful, or whatever, or yes, the stomach can be very painful. A bit deeper, dicky, 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 dicky. And I'm like, oh no, just the fact that you're gentle with it is freaking me the fuck out. Like,
Yeah.
I actually wish she was more angry with it, then I wouldn't feel so grossed out.
And her tone, by the way, the actress, I don't know her name, has really changed.
Right.
Yeah,
I.
from being really sweet and quiet
Mhm.
and shy to this, I don't even know how you describe how she is
A,
here.
a monster. A monster. She is a monster in this scene. But my God, her performance is incredible. Incredible. I've got a note here. I've already likened it to Misery, but she puts the needles in her eyes. She also cuts his leg off with.
Oh, yes.
So she cuts the leg off with the wire, right? And I've got a note here that says, this is like Misery, but on crack cocaine. It's just amped up to another level. And she just throws the foot away.
And
Dashes
here's
the.
what here's what I mean about. Sorry, I interrupted you a bit there. This is what I mean about the detail here, because you see her like pulling the wire quite aggressively, and then pop, it pops off, and you can see how
Yeah.
curved it is. So you have the
Yeah.
detail with the shape that the wire has been like misshapen.
Mm-hmm.
The sound effect, the screaming, and like, her reaction, and then as she disregards the foot, you get the shot from the outside, so you see that from the window
Mm-hmm.
in, and you hear the donk, you hear the foot hit the window, a bit of
The
blood.
thud of the foot, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so quiet as well, and it's just like any other film where someone's getting sliced up with a wire, you wouldn't. It would not have been that detailed.
No, and I feel like they'd have like music and score to set the tone, and maybe some high octane sounds and all this. Whereas this one, as you so rightly point out, very quiet, very minimal sound. He can't make too much noise because he's got some paralyzed drug in him. So all you really hear is this very gentle, quite sweet voice saying really scary things. Deeper, 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 deeper. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's really fucking brutal. And then the disrespect to just throw the foot away as well. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, she's already disrespected the man, but I feel like throwing the foot, just, I'd be like, come on now. Come on. You've just cut my foot off. The least you could do is place it nicely on the floor. Why are you throwing shit around my gaff?
I have a
And then,
question here.
go on.
Do you think that the man in the bag is Aoyama, or do you think that she's trying to make Aoyama another victim like
I,
the guy that's already in the bag?
So I think she's going to try and turn him into her pet. So he'll have no legs, he'll have his tongue out, he'll have no fingers, and he'll only be allowed to love her. And that I think is her plan. I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where the movie's going with it.
Yeah.
This is where we get my favorite line of the film, by the way. Are you ready for my favorite line of the film?
Go on.
The son comes home, right? And they hear the son come home. So she goes and hides. And he comes out to the living room, sees his dad on the floor with needles in his eyes, in his stomach, and his foot's been cut off. And he goes, "What happened, Dad?" I don't like, and he doesn't look remotely concerned. He just stands there. "What happened, Dad? You fucking idiot! You fucking idiot!" Anyway, do they start drinking a bit again after this as well? They start having.
Did you fall over, Dad?
What happened, mate? What happened?
You slipped over.
I fell. But they start dreaming again, and then they're like, "Yeah, this is it. This is." We were talking about this earlier, where they now go have a flashback to they've just had sex. So it's they're now. He wakes up in bed with her. He checks to make sure he's still got his foot, and they're now acting all sweet. Well, she's acting all sweet with him, but now his face every time she like hugs him or says anything, no, he just looks at her like, "What the fuck is going on?" And like, I don't know about you, but for me, in this part of the movie, it actually made me laugh. Actually got like a laugh out of me in this really quite high octane emotional scene. The fact that we're now in, like, even if it's a dream or not, the fact that his face is just looking at her like, what the fuck's going on? I think he plays it so well. Like, he just proper cracks me up every time she hugs him. But I don't know why we go back to that, because then we suddenly immediately come back to the real world, and then she's chasing the son, and he goes up the stairs instead of out the door to get help. But it seems to work out because she falls down the stairs.
He kicked her.
He kicked her, sorry, yeah. He kicks her down the stairs. Dad slug crawls on his back to try and get a look. And
did you notice the old man in the school? Did you notice his feet?
The old man in the school with the feet? No.
He had like feet stitched onto his shoes or something.
Oh yeah. So we can assume that he had it, like, she cut his legs off.
Maybe he was the first of his victims.
Yeah, I think so. Because when he first meets him, he's like, "Did you touch her? Did you smell her? Did you taste her?" So I think the implication is anyone who gets sort of physically connected to her, she has to do this too, for whatever reason.
Yeah, and she also feels betrayed by Aoyama because she mistakenly thinks that he only wanted to have sex with her for the film, but actually he wanted something more. He did sleep with her, but he wanted something more, and she felt betrayed. And so I guess this was her revenge. And you can perhaps assume that if she killed the guy at the Stonefish and some other guy, this guy that she's torturing, probably she felt wronged by each one of them before, and then she takes it. She tortures them basically. So it's her, like, you promised yourself to me, you've fucked me over, I'm going to kill you basically. And another thing about,
she is fucking Looney Tune though. Shit, this has put me off Girlfriends for Life.
Yeah. And I keep thinking like other stuff. Like, I was thinking that it was very convenient that Aoyama's son was at a friend's house and she just broke into the house at the time. And I think maybe, like, before I was thinking, was that planned? Did something happen? But no. I think literally it just was a coincidence because, like I said earlier, like
No. I think it was planned because when he comes back, we learn that his girlfriend had to go to hospital or something, right?
Oh, something happened. Yeah, someone got sick or something.
I reckon maybe if it wasn't planned, I'm sure that's a hint to something in that maybe Asami was maybe poisoning some of the dad's food or something, because we know that when the girl comes round, the dad will let her eat his food, because he's a good wingman to his son.
But do you think did he go to her house or was it another friend?
I mean, I don't know. I made a link. Who knows? I don't know if it was planned or if it was an accident, but they definitely make a point out of her going to a hospital for some reason.
Yeah, I just like to think that she's not a perfect killer.
No.
She's an emotional killer. And when you do that, you leave mistakes. Like so many, like because I've watched, like I'm using my knowledge as someone who's into psychopaths and shit. Uh, yeah, a lot of them come
Oh,
from
lovely.
abuse, and then they abuse people, and they're not always like they make mistakes. Stuff gets fucked up. She's not supposed to be some unbeatable serial killer. She's just a psychopath that felt wronged by Aoyama and was going to kill
And
him,
a
basically. And
and a message out there to Craig's wife. He knows too much about this shit. Get away from him now.
for your own good,
For your
save
own good,
yourselves.
for your own safety.
So yeah, I don't know. I like your idea, but I also think that it's very possible that she just happened to be there at a
Maybe.
time when he wasn't. Maybe she
Yeah.
wasn't planning for him to be
Just,
there at all.
just a
And
matter of
then,
convenience. Yeah.
yeah, because that also does happen with a lot of serial killers. Like
No,
the
no. They
most
must. She must
silliest
have.
thing happens, and then
No, but
they're
she must have planned for him to be there because she had all of her murder gear on her.
yeah, but she's
Unless she
I
has a
don't know.
car. Unless she has a car. Does she
Well,
have a car?
you can't just take that shit on like the underground in
No, but
my
if you got,
murder bag.
but she might have a murder bag in like the secret compartment of a murder car. If she has a murder car.
It
Well,
makes me think.
every murderer needs a murder car.
It makes me think of it's always sunny in
Yeah.
Philadelphia when Dennis has
Tools,
his they're my
tools.
tools.
I need to have my tools. Why do you have a bunch of creepy tools in a secret compartment in your car? Fetish shit. I like to be bound. Yeah, it's amazing. That scene's incredible. But yeah, I've got one last note here, and it's not really a note. It's just more of a statement of how fucking out of order you are, bitch. Um, After stabbing needles in his eyes, she secures them nice and tight, and then she fucking flicks them at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck. Like this, it's just so fucking brutal. But yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to say. I'm pretty much out of steam on this, Craig. I think I've ran out of my notes.
Yeah, me too. The only thing else I was going to add to what you just said about the needles was like when she kind of sits on them with the apron
Ah,
and
yeah,
like
that's the worst part for me.
the amount of damage that would, because like when you put a needle
Yeah.
down, right, you're just going to poking a hole straight down. But as soon as you move them, it's going to rip right through his stomach.
Yep.
And like the amount of damage that's going to do. Oh, fuck.
Or,
The
or they
surgery.
or they're gonna like they'll rip, but they'll probably bend a little bit before snapping, and then when they snap, you'll have little shards of needle just like shrapneling through your stomach. This is real film shrapnel, baby. Should we give
Oh,
it? Should we give it a rating, or do you have something you want to go on?
I was just going to say, um, the whole idea, because like I feel like she's kind of like her personality is kind of summarized by pain and suffering. Like she
Mm-hmm.
talks about her childhood and her life growing up and the suffering that she went through, which is also why Aoyama likes her. And also the fact that she likes to torture people. And I was thinking, like, so her personality is summarized by the pain and the suffering that she's been through, and it just made me think a lot about Hellraiser, which was our previous podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Previous
Yes.
episode. I just thought it was an interesting little connection there. Just wanted to throw
Yeah.
that in.
No, I like that. Cool. What should we rate it then? Should we rate this bad boy?
Yeah.
How many
Okay.
need how many needles out of 21 needles?
Why 21 needles?
Because I feel like because one needle would be too much for me. So I need to find a common ground between the amount of needles he got and the amount of needles I could have before I would panic. And I think 21, because he definitely gets at least double that. So it's a common medium between me and him. Because one is too many for me. One is way too many needles. He got way more than that.
Okay. between 21 needles.
Do you have a better measure of a tool of measurement?
Mm, out of 2 feet, how many feet would you give it?
Oh, it's 2 feet out of 2 feet. It's definitely 2 severed feet out of 2 severed feet. I give it 4 severed feet out of 2 severed feet.
Yeah, because you got to find the extras, when you find the
Yeah,
remains.
Yeah, you're quite right. So I give out of 2 severed feet, I give this 2 severed feet, 3 severed fingers, and a severed tongue.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. I don't know. Out of all the films that we've watched so far, um, I think this one and Hellraiser I'm liking the most. I'll tell you.
I definitely think I definitely prefer Hellraiser, I think, but this one is definitely a very, very good movie. Like this
Yeah,
is it not only is it a good movie, but it's also an incredibly scary horror film at the end. You get a great payoff, but it's also really cleverly put together. There's a really solid build up. I mean, IMDb, Craig, I'll give this an 8.5.
ooh, I have it open on IMDb, by the way, but I haven't looked at the tab yet. I would probably, yeah, a minimum between 8 and 8.5 at least.
Mm,
Should I have
yeah.
a look and tell you what it is?
Yeah, let's have a look.
All right. So, out of 87,000 ratings on IMDb, it's 7.1 actually, which I find kind of
Really?
strange. But you know what? I'll tell you this. Uh, we watch this. We watch a lot of films, and I think we're quite patient. So I can wait an hour 20 before seeing a massive payoff, and I think you can as well. But I think with some
I mean,
people, the
yeah,
whole
you know what? I think that's a good point to make, that there'll be people out there giving it that 8.5 that it deserves. But there'll also be people out there going, you know what? The ending's fucking great, but I had to sit through an hour and a half of bullshit. So I'll give it a 6. So it's sort of
hmm,
averaged out at a 7.1. That sounds about right to me. That makes sense to me.
yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are not patient. Like there are some people when they think of horror, they think of the goriness, the violence, which this film does have nicely.
Yeah.
But like we were saying before, Suspiria, so much of the horror in that film is not really from the violence; it's more from the vibe, from the tension that it builds
Uh,
with.
and and of course Hellraiser as well. You know, it's all about tone. You know, it's the tone of it that really sort of builds that horror.
Yeah. So I think, but yeah, I think a lot of people don't really think, they don't really appreciate those other elements going on. They just want the violence, they just want the killing, they just want that shit.
Mm.
Especially in the last like 20 or even 30 years, like since the 90s. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean, well, I'd say sort of, you know, because we got that sort of birth of like we call it gore porn, don't we? Things like Hostel or Human Centipede, where it's just like gore, gore, gore. Just give us an excuse to have lots of gore on screen, and then do all the gore on screen, and that's your horror film. Saw does it as well, but Saw actually has a pretty interesting plot to get you there, at least. But let's not forget that Saw would have been I think Honest Trailers put it best, that it's a very good idea for a student short film that's been strung along into a 10, 11 movie franchise.
Yeah.
All right, well, 8 or 8.5 out of 10. I think that's a pretty good rating. I think Audition is definitely worth watching. Highly recommend it to those of you who haven't seen it. Takashi Miike, excellent, excellent film. I do prefer Itchy the Killer. I didn't realize that was a Takashi Miike film, but I do
We have
really
to
like
watch it.
Itchy. Yeah, it's fucking great. I really like that one. All right. Do you have anything else to say, Craig? If not, let's wrap this one up.
No, I guess that's the end of our horror month.
That's the
Uh,
end of Horror Month. That's it. We did it, man. Happy
yeah.
Halloween, everyone. We are Film Shrapnel. Go check us out on the app formerly known as Twitter, at Film Shrapnel, capital F, capital S. Craig, what are we doing next month? We're doing Shit Movie Month?
Oh, yeah. So we already have two set up for next month. By the way,
Yeah,
we're
but
recording
they're
this
not
halfway through
but they're
October.
not but they're not like movies though. So
No.
like we won't. We'll announce closer to the time what movies we'll be watching, so you guys can watch along with us. So keep up to date with us on X, or as I still like to call it, Twitter.
I'm also calling it Twitter. It's going to be Twitter for me forever.
Yeah, or the app formerly known as Twitter. So yeah, give us a follow on there, and then we'll be able to update you guys with the set list of films to watch for next month. And until then.
Shrub